The lead sound in your track is by far one of the most important elements in your track. The lead is what the listener is going to remember the most about your track, and if executed correctly, they will be humming the lead of your tune to themselves after your track is played. Of course, the notes you play in your lead and how they combine harmonically with your track is of the utmost importance for the overall success of your lead sound. But what is often overlooked is the actual sound design of the lead. My name is Daniel with Envato Tuts. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a three-dimensional lead sound so your track can have the biggest emotional impact possible. So let's get into the DAW. The first step in creating a three-dimensional lead sound is your sound selection. You want to have sounds that'll work well in the mix, sounds that complement each other, and are timbrally interesting. When creating leads, I like to use two layers. One main layer and one high layer. The main layer provides that base for the lead and is the foundational layer, and the high layer will be higher pitched and provide more air, lift, and timbral interest to the lead. Having these two layers helps give you the best possible starting point for getting this three-dimensional lead. So let's have a listen to the main lead that I have here. And then let's have a listen to the high lead here. And then both together. As you can hear, these two sounds work really well together and help create timbral interest, which is necessary for the three-dimensional lead. So after I have my two layers, the main and the high layer, I like to then process the layers. And I first like to use EQing to help clear up any unwanted frequencies and help the layers shine through in the mix. So for the main layer, I just like to add a low cut at around 133 hertz, as I like to clear up the sub frequencies, as these will not be needed for the lead sound, as our sub bass will be taking care of all our sub frequencies in our song. And I'll go ahead and put an EQ on the high lead sound. And again, we'll apply a low cut, and this low cut will go even higher. We'll apply this low cut at around 469 hertz, as we don't want these frequencies to overlap with the main lead layer. We just want this element to provide the high-end lift and timbral interest. So there's once again no need to have the frequencies that are below 469 hertz, as they are already taken care of with the main lead. And next, I like to go into a stereo imaging of the individual layers, as this is another component of a three-dimensional lead, is having a stereo separation. And for my stereo imaging, I'm going to use Ableton's utility plugin, but any stereo imaging plugin will work here. And for our main lead here, I'm going to go ahead and reduce the stereo width. So reduce the amount of side information in the main lead layer. I'm going to go ahead and reduce that to around 70% here. And the reason we're doing this is we want this to be a little bit more of a monocentric lead, just taking out a little bit of the sides of the sound, so that way the high lead will sound a bit wider. If all we have in our mix is very wide and stereo spread elements, then our track really won't sound very wide, as there is nothing to contrast it with. So to have your mix sound wide, you need to have contrasting elements that are a little bit more narrow in the mix and have less side information. So now we go on over to the high lead. I'm gonna go ahead and stereo spread this a little bit. Let's go around to 125 here, 125%. And this will be stereo spread a bit more. And the reason we choose to stereo spread the high frequencies is because high frequencies are directional, meaning that the human ear can differentiate high frequencies in space a lot easier than they can low frequencies. So spreading of high frequencies will be more noticeable. So now let's have a listen to the EQing and the stereo imaging that we have done. You can hear that the lead is taking up a big part of the mix. These sounds are separated, you can hear them clearly, and they sound wide. Finally, I like to do some group processing on these two lead layers to help polish them off. To create even more width in the mix, I like to add a left-right EQ and boost the high frequencies of one channel and reduce the frequencies on another channel. So what this will do is create a difference in frequencies in the left and right channels, and therefore be perceived as a little bit wider, because there'll be a little less high frequencies in one of the channels and a little more high frequencies in the other channel. So just a little will go a long way here. Go ahead and add our high shelf filter and change the mode of our EQ to left-right. And you can do this with any EQ that has a left-right mode on it. So now we'll go ahead and edit the left channel. Go ahead and boost this up around 1 decibel, and then go to the right channel. Take off these filters and just have the high shelf. I'll go ahead and reduce it by 1.1 decibels. Just some subtle EQing here, again, to create width and a little bit more of a 3-dimensional sound. So let's have a listen. Without. So a very subtle difference here. These subtle differences end up making a big impact in the final product. Next, we'll go ahead and add a reverb to this. Your standard reverb will work here. I'm going to set this to around 34% and the decay time to around 3.3 seconds. A little bit longer of a reverb here. So listen. Maybe reduce the decay and dry wet, as it was a little bit too washed out there. And this reverb will add depth and space to the mix, which is another important part of creating 3-dimensional sounds in your mix. And then finally, to brighten this up and give the final piece of polish, we're going to go ahead and add the free OTT plugin. You can grab this free OTT plugin on the Xfer Records site. This stands for over-the-top compression. It will help give our sounds a little bit of brightness and bring the choir elements a little bit more forward in the mix through upwards and downwards compression. So go ahead and turn the depth knob down and then increase the upward compression on the higher frequencies by moving this black bar to the right, and then increase the amount of upward compression that is being applied to about 117%. Using the upward percentage knob. And let's have a listen and adjust the depth. Without. With. So by choosing a main layer and a high layer that are separated by an octave, EQing out muddy frequencies and unnecessary frequencies, as well as brightening high frequencies in the high lead layer, using stereo imaging on both layers, and processing the group of lead layers with the left-right EQ, reverb, and over-the-top compression, you can create a 3-dimensional lead that will deliver in your track.